Gentlemen, so great to have you here on the podcast today. Thanks for joining me.
Great to be here.
Thank you. It's great to be here as well.
So we had HC9 on the podcast a while back, and I'm really glad to have you back on now because we can catch up. But I want to first start off by telling the audience that maybe hasn't heard of HC9. These are my favorite people to reach, by the way, the ones that haven't heard of a company or a fund. I doubt that's the case with you, but let's assume there's people that haven't heard. What do you tell them about the fund and the companies that you invest in?
Sure. So again, thank you for having us. My name is Richard Lungen. I'm co-founder and general partner of HC9 Ventures. Been in healthcare my entire career. Had the privilege of being on the ground floor of a variety of companies, thinking more so around commercialization, sales, and go-to-market was really the predominant part of my career, and started a business almost 20 years ago with my co-founder, Charlie Falcone. The reason why we started HC9, to address your question, is because young emerging companies, capital is somewhat of a commodity. What isn't a commodity is the ability to deploy that capital with a true focus around go-to-market and commercialization, not just around passive capital. So we are very focused on bringing our portfolio companies a lot more than a check. We want to bring our portfolio companies knowledge, strategy, and the fact that we have 130 plus limited partners who are the quote who's who of healthcare. We're able to surround those companies with a lot more than capital. These individuals bring to the table where healthcare is going, where it's been, thus the experience. So the reason we are deploying capital, Jared, to your question, is because healthcare is hard right now. And quite frankly, there are really amazing entrepreneurs who have a business, they have aspirations, but what they really need is to be married up with thoughtful, strategic, actionable capital to help take their company not just to the next level, but maybe to levels 2, 3, or 4 beyond that in an accelerated manner. So we believe there's no better time than to be investing in healthcare right now, no matter how hard it is, whether it's payer, provider, employer, or patient facing care. So we're very bullish on the market right now. With that said, we're very thoughtful on where we're deploying our capital. We're very careful where we deploy our capital. We're investing in companies that are solving a problem. I think the days of shiny objects and silver bullets, they're either on hold or they're certainly on pause. So we're being thoughtful, again, using that word, to invest in the companies, the sectors that those companies are facing, and also the entrepreneurs and the operators. It's all about the talent and the people when it comes to these companies. So a little bit of a long-winded answer to your question, and I'm glad to dig in as well after Ken goes, of course.
Oh, I couldn't add much, Richard. I think you did fantastic. I would, Jared, say that one thing that Richard pulled together, and he mentioned it a little, but an incredible ecosystem of LPs with backgrounds on the payer side, the provider side, the lab side, mainly operators and individuals that can really jump in and help, whether it be from relationships and introductions or to questions on how to scale or organizational questions. It is a great group of individuals. And as an LP, what I enjoy about it is it's a great group to work with. It's a great group to network with. And we have a lot of fun when we get together. But Richard, when he pulls in a company and is looking to help fill out a board or get advisors or whatever he may do, he has a long list of people that he is able to pull from that are invested in it because we're invested in the fund.
Jared, I'm going to jump in because if I don't say this, I'm going to miss an opportunity. The fact to be on your podcast with Ken Goulet is a career honor for me. Whether Ken dismisses that or not, that's his choosing. I will say that it's an honor. We have been very lucky to build what we've built. It started with a few individuals that believed in Charlie and I. The fact that 130 others, along with almost $100 million, have come together and we've already done 7 deals, which we've led all 7 with more right behind it, is it's truly a career moment, both here on this podcast with Ken, as well as the ability to be surrounded by these talented individuals at HC9.
Ken, those are some nice words right there. That must make you feel good when you hear stuff like that.
That makes me feel like I paid him, Jared, for an endorsement of some type. I'm one of 130 of some very just experienced individuals, and I'm honored to be part of the HC9, but to be part of the LPs. They are just great individuals and tremendous backgrounds, and I think each of us bring different backgrounds to help the company.
I would like to hear, because this is often something I hear from a lot of these founders, right? They go through these conversations and they're able to bring in the right capital, but a lot of them struggle, even good businesses, to bring in the lead. And you're saying you're leading each of those. So I would love to hear, what goes through your thought process to say, like, we love to lead. Like, is that part of your focus? Like, will you always lead, or will you also find certain opportunities where you're not the lead?
We don't have to lead. So I'm told that being the founder of a venture capital firm, I need to use the word thematic at least one time in my day, every day. So our thematic approach to investing is to invest in companies where we feel we are in sync with the team around strategy and commercialization. We want to also invest in products and solutions that we feel we can understand and make an impact on day one. And the ability to deploy capital in a meaningful sense, whereby we always are on the board. We are able to, if chosen, to build advisory boards made up of our LPs, as well as to collectively pick an independent director made up of hopefully one of our LPs to bring that industry experience. Do we always have to lead? No. Thus far, we have, and we've enjoyed that opportunity because we've been able to then go to relationships who we feel can also have an equal impact on growing the business. A few weeks ago, we announced our latest investment, and we were able to invite Memorial Hermann as a strategic to the table to co-invest with us, to bring that type of background as a provider, as a risk-bearing provider, and as a health plan. So the ability to do things like that, Jared, are very important to us. And as we kick off the plans for our second fund, which is happening and literally in several weeks, again, the approach will be the same. Our check size might be a little bit bigger, but we want to co-invest with our fellow venture capital friends, health plans, providers, people who, and individuals who can have an impact on these companies and bring a lot more than just capital to the table. So long-winded answer, we don't always have to lead, but thus far we have. We've developed a skill set around pricing. I think my colleagues have also developed a skill set around diligence. As a venture capital firm, I think we carry the lens of diligence almost like private equity because we've been operators. We kind of know what to look for, and we're able to sniff out things that don't feel very good on a go-forward basis, if that's helpful to you.
It's super helpful. I would like to hear too about how some of these portfolio companies are faring today. Like if there's any that you particularly want to single out here, would love to hear about kind of an update on where they're at, and also for the audience that maybe hasn't heard about them, what they're doing.
So we have 3 boys in our family, and they all think they're equal, but I don't tell them where they rank. Of our 7 portfolio companies, I try not to call favorites. Of course, everyone will be listening, and I will get lit up on my phone. I will call out some. Our very first investment is a company out of New York that is serving a very important population for intensive outpatient and outpatient mental behavioral health. We were fortunate to meet Forge Health when they had 3 going on 4 locations, somewhere around $1.5 million of revenue. We're almost 20 locations now. We have 160 full-time clinicians on the team. We maintain a strategy of geographic density. In healthcare, a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand how important it is to deploy your solution in a geographic location. That allows you to have deeper discussions with health plans and providers when it comes to reimbursement. So Forge has grown tremendously. But I think one of the reasons why Forge has also grown is the people around the table. Ken referenced some of our other limited partners, and the ability to put fellow board members like Dr. Alan Muni, Paul Martino, Elisa Ball on the board, and as well as the advisory board made up of the who's who from our LPs who understand network. We've been able to guide Forge on how to approach health plans, how to approach state Medicaid, how to approach RFPs. That's not to say the company hasn't had its ups and downs. We recently brought on an investment with the Moscow family office to add some fortitude to capital as well as door opening. But Forge is solving a really big problem. I'll skip around a tiny bit. Really appreciate the last investment we made. A wonderful group of people who are true experts in the field of device and sleep. So bringing together this comorbidity of sleep, remote patient monitoring, all in the hope of mitigating or eliminating the expense of cardiac visits. And then you talk about the people. We also noted that Joan Harvey, an amazing human being out of Cigna, is joining us on the board. I'll just pick on one other company in the world of AI. I think that's another thing you have to say once a day. Our portfolio company, Laguna, is driving this innovation around a workforce labor intensive care management department inside of health plans predominantly. And we think we're going to make the care managers much more efficacious with members as well as reducing expense. So all in all, Jared, I would say that with the help of our limited partners and my colleagues at HC9, all of our companies are seeing increased in revenue, increased in market reception. We've had a B round and an up round with our company XP. So with a lot of hard work, all of our companies are progressing very nicely in the market.
I love it. Yeah, we had Laguna on. It was March 2023, which was I was a big fan of. Was it Yanni? Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. Which was it was a great conversation. I was very pleased to see that company in your portfolio. I would like to kind of, Ken, would love your take on this, and then we can kick it back to Richard. But how you view macro trends impacting the VC world today?
Yeah. Macro trends, and Richard would probably tie in a little better on valuations, but number one, valuations have come down quite a bit in the last 4 years for initial company launches. And 4 or 5 years ago, if you had a great executive team, a good market product fit, no customers yet, and we're moving forward, your valuation could be in the 15, 20 million range. These days, it's probably, half of that, let's say. So better buying opportunities. There was a period of time where it grew. I would say, as Richard said, any good company to invest in is solving a problem. And I would say when selling to employers or health plans, and it applies to hospitals as well, but you always need to have a demonstrable ROI and one that can go through actuarial review. There should be a very clear ROI. There should be an improvement in quality or service. It matters to be an easy implementation. These organizations sound big, and it sounds like, oh, I just sold this health plan or this employer, and boy, this is going to be great. They're struggling with their own resources and can only bring in so many people. So especially around IT, if you're implementing a program, the lower IT resource, the likelier it's going to get implemented quickly and not be put on a list. And then tying into the mission. And I would say some of the trends, it's always cost of care, ties in, improvement in quality is always going to be something that ties in very well. Behavioral health over the last several years, really since COVID, has been a hot point and the comorbid costs has been a hot point for employers and for health plans and hospitals. And then recently, I would just say data has come more important, both through AI and use of AI, but also in ways of cleaning up things from an administrative basis, which can be AI or it can be just blocking and tackling. But data management has become pretty important across most areas. So, Jared, as long as a company can prove the impact they're making on others through both quality and ideally lower cost. There'll be someone who will be receptive. I would just say, even at that point, it's not a slam dunk. It's very difficult to sell to large organizations, and there's a process that you have to go through to make it work.
Jared, so thank you, Ken. If I could pile on to one thing. So it's a little bit of a name drop, if not the fact that maybe my parents are proud that I'm actually on the Harvard Business School campus right now, because supposedly I'm going to participate in a class next year. So we'll see how that goes. But a few students surrounded me, thanks to one of our LPs who's speaking today, and they were asking me some questions. And I'm going to pile on to something Ken said, which is something we absolutely believe in, if not mandate in our deal docs. Young companies need to prove their ROI out of the gate. For young companies to think that their prospective customers, employers, health systems, or health plans are going to demonstrate value, they're prolonging the sales cycle and they're hurting their business. So we've brought in a former colleague of Ken's actuarial firm, and we have asked them to jump in on day one or even before we even make the investment to help prove out these ROIs so that when the sales teams get busy, because again, remember what I said, Jared, we are very focused on commercialization and go to market to accelerate our company's revenue and valuation. By having these actuarial models or even a rudimentary ROI built out, that is something that young companies, entrepreneurs should be investing in from day one, not let's win a couple of customers and go back and revisit the pricing. It is incredibly important, and there's been no harder time selling to a health plan or to an employer. Having that in your bag out of the gate, I'll just say it's fundamental these days to everything Ken said.
Agree.
I would like to hear, the signaling around, like, I'm not sure if this is even a space that you've been, but like I'm following the ambient documentation, right? All these clinical documentation AI companies. There's a couple, and when you're hearing stories about there were certain pilots or companies that even invested in one of these tools and then switched to a competitor. Like, how does someone bounce back from something like that? This is just something that kind of came top of mind, and since I have both of you here, I would love your thoughts on it, because I'm sure you see this from time to time, right? You have even a health system that made an investment in a particular company, but then they ended up switching to something else. Is that like always negative signaling, or what is that from your point of view? What does that end up meaning?
Yeah, I'll jump in first with the thought, Jared. If I'm on a board or helping a company in one way or another, I would say number one, probably the prime mission is selling your first couple clients, but then making everyone referenceable. So if you do have a client and it leaves you, that is a problem. If you can learn from it, understand and improve. And fortunately, none of the HC9 portfolio companies have run into that. But if you do lose a client, it's not a mortal combat injury, but it can be. And you have to learn from it. You have to modify. You have to understand why you couldn't, because that should be an anchor client that you're working to just make them your reference for the future. Now, with that said, there's politics involved with some decisions. There's someone, a board member could know another individual and just force something through, or someone may just have a product that's not maybe oversold or not yet what a competitor is. I would just say you have to learn, but I would tell any customer who's even risking losing one of their clients that they better be all over it, because you have to make your initial clients references.
Yeah, it's hard to add to that, except I would say that we try to coach our businesses on finding again, fundamentals. Who's your user buyer? Who's your executive sponsor? Who's your Sherpa inside of these prospective customers? Fundamental things like meeting with your customers around QBRs on a quarterly basis. What's your report package look like on a monthly basis? Pipeline management, without throwing darts against the wall, but literally real sound pipeline management. If you're managing these things right, you're hopefully listening for the cues and the whispers when things are going awry. You can't avoid a health plan, for example, investing in a fund who has a competitive company. These things happen. But if you're on top of your prospects and your clients, you're building those relationships. And I'll preach another thing to an entrepreneurial company: study healthcare. The greatest thing about healthcare is every health plan, and even some of the blues, they tell you everything you want to know for free on a quarterly basis. Just listen to the earnings calls. They're not pretty, but these folks tell you everything you need to know about what's wrong with their business. So mistakes will happen, but hopefully you can be in front of it. As far as ambient listening, well, that ties into Laguna, right? So
Yeah.
Laguna's in that space, and we haven't lost a customer. And Laguna has recently announced its first health plan customer with Highmark. Announced another partnership the other day with Shearwater. I would say that in that space, there's use cases. So there's a variety of use cases on ambient listening on the provider side around practices. Thus far, not to say there's not two guys in a hoodie building something as we speak in Silicon Valley, but thus far Laguna is in front of the market, but they're not resting on their laurels. They know that there's smart people out there looking at the same pain points. So just a little bit of color on ambient listening, Jared.
Last question for both of you here. I guess we'll kick it over to Richard, and then kind of if there's anything you want to add. What's next now for HC9?
Sure. What's next is another 1 to 2 investments from Fund 1, and following a very exciting strategy meeting yesterday, kicking off Fund 2 in going into the JP Morgan timeframe post January 1st. We are excited about raising somewhere between 2 to 2.5x of what we did in Fund 1. However, the thoughtfulness and the strategy of what we did in Fund 1 will not waver. We are passionate about our early stage companies, Jared, for everything we've talked about here today. We think the early stage companies need what we bring to the table. We believe that the LP community in Fund 2 will be thus that. It will be a community of thoughtful, like-minded, collaborative individuals. There will be some family office and other related entities, but we're really excited about what we've built. I'm surrounded by a great team of people. Of course, my co-founder, Charlie Falcone, an amazing operator, but the ability to have people like Haley Hovius, who came from the Nashville Healthcare Council, where she was president, to be able to manage our LPs as a head of networking community, Helen Shashelsky on our investment side, and now with Michael Koshansky helping with growth and strategy. We think we have the beginning of a team to grow from there, just to take it to the next level on Fund 2 and beyond.
And Jared, I don't have much to add. I would say investing in Fund 2, that's next on my list. But I would also say just recognition. Fund 2 is usually the hardest fund to raise for because you don't have full IRR, you don't have full MOIC on the initial fund, but the momentum is so strong and the companies on the revenue side are growing so well. And the support they've received, I think any potential portfolio company would love to have HC9 as an investor, so it kind of gives you a look at the best companies. I think it will go a lot easier for Richard, Charlie, and team than most Fund 2s go. I think it'll line up very nicely.
All nice things. This is you two just talking back and forth. This is.
I could do this all day with Ken.
This is
like
heartwarming.
This is amazing to me.
I want to thank you both for joining us here today, and look forward to future conversations. Please keep us up to date on any. I know your PR team and other folks will tell us if there's new investments made and things like that. But we want to be on top of it, and wishing you both the best of luck. But congrats on everything. This is awesome.
Thanks, Jared.
Jared, thank you very much. Appreciate the honor and the time.